Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie, and I'm here with my husband Jim, and it is Sunday evening, and we are once again sitting upstairs in our new little podcast studio that we're working on, talking about artificial intelligence on a Sunday evening. We have Sadie and Maggie in the background, so if you hear our dogs, you will know what that is. We are also going to have a guest on this evening. We are going to be talking to Matthew Burke, who is actually the CFO for AI Ed Pro, but he also has been using some artificial intelligence in his job, and we're kind of curious about how he is doing that. So, anyway, Jim, let's talk about what is in the news right now with artificial intelligence.
Well, before we go too much into the news, we're going to kind of change the format. I'm going to try to change the format a little bit. I haven't really discussed it a whole lot with you yet, but I was having a discussion with you, and I had a discussion with one of our partners, Amy, recently, and we were talking about how a lot of people are reporting the news. There's some people who tell you how to do things, but there's not a lot of how is this useful to me? To me, not in general, some generic use, but how can I use this, or how do we use this? So we're going to kind of put in each one of our podcasts. I'm going to try to put something in there about how it's useful to you. What tool can you use?
I saw a LinkedIn post today that was a lady who had written an article about how she wants artificial intelligence to do the laundry and to do her dishes. And that way she can focus on writing and her art. So somebody commented back that actually, there is an AI component to vacuums now. If you have like one of the robotic vacuums, there's a little bit of like a mapping software that's
Oh yeah.
a little bit of an AI component to that. So maybe eventually it can do my laundry.
When we owned the restaurant, we wanted it to wash the dishes. Remember? We
Yes.
talked about that, having
Yes.
a robot dishwasher. I even priced them at the time. I could get one for the low price of $25,000.
Over the course of the 7 years that we had the restaurant, it might have been worth it.
Might have paid for itself just because it was hard to keep a dishwasher.
Yes.
So, what's in the news? Well, you actually introduced me to the first article. So, do you have it in front of you?
Yes,
So,
I do. So the first article was about ChatGPT and OpenAI introducing ChatGPT EDU.
That's correct.
So I was very excited when I first saw this because I was like, oh, EDU, they're finally coming out with something that you can use that's affordable, that is an AI offering, and it's specifically for students and faculty, and it's going to be like very educationally focused. And I was very excited until I saw that one word in the announcement, and that was universities. So I immediately commented back. I was like, "What about K-12 education?" It's this. It's a digital divide. It's a divide right there. Right there is a very significant divide. OpenAI is offering this to university students. What about the students in K-12 that aren't necessarily going to go to university?
Yeah, well, part of it is they don't want to get attacked by the book burners because they,
Yeah.
allow students access.
Parental concern.
putting-
Anyone under
they're
18
They're
years of
putting
age.
in an infrastructure that allows people like me, the technology director, potentially in the future, just like we do with Google Classroom, Microsoft, all of those, we have this ability to, it's an enterprise control system where we can, track what people are doing. We could probably put in content filtering. So theoretically, with them putting in this infrastructure,
I'm hoping it's the first step.
well, and they list the key features. If
Absolutely.
you notice
It
what
talks
they are.
about higher message limits. It talks about over 15 languages that are supported. It talks about security, data privacy, administrative
That's
controls,
exactly what I was talking about.
there's-
Even your favorite, single sign-on.
single sign-on, which is going to be, something very important, especially with the littles, as I call them. Any kindergarten through fifth grade, they cannot remember passwords unless it's for a video game, and then they can remember it all day
And
long.
the most important one is the last key feature.
Conversations, which one?
Conversations and data are not used to train OpenAI models.
Yes. I have mixed feelings about that because if we don't use data,
You can't for under 13. They
Yeah,
can't for under
they just
13.
can't.
For us, for college students, you could argue that it's okay, but Not for us.
And what is so 13 is what
That's
is
the
out there?
FERPA COPPA thing. When we look, even Google, when we give permissions
Yes.
remember, you have to give permissions for every app that they use. That's
Hmm.
the reason
That's
why.
new. That's new.
That's the reason. Well, the under 13 thing's been around for a while, but
No, it's
Google,
about Google having you specifically approve an app
every
that a
single
student,
one of the
every
apps,
one of
that
them.
is new because used to it was more of an honor system, but now they want us as the IT people to take responsibility.
Well, the use cases that they're talking about with this GPT
Which the number one use
EDU,
case is your favorite.
personalized tutoring and feedback directly to the students. So that to me is huge. Of course,
Think Khan Academy,
absolutely.
which also disappointed you
It
recently.
really disappointed me.
You've been disappointed a lot lately.
I've been very disappointed
You
lately.
have?
So, Khan Academy came out with, a free version and it was awesome. But then when you really dig into it, which is probably exactly why the Chat GPT EDU is doing the same thing.
Yep.
Khan Academy, the free stuff is only for teachers. It's only the teacher tools. It's not the student tools. It's not the tutoring tools.
I know, because
So
we're hamstringing our students. I understand the desire for safety, but we still, if we're going to move forward with this, if you want to train the next generation, at a minimum, at least high school age. Typical high school is at least
15 to 18, 14 to 18.
Sophomore to seniors.
Mhm.
Make sure they're 15 or older, but we need these tools.
Absolutely.
Well, and this other stuff we already do. I mean, assisting with grading, grant applications, grading assignments. We already teach people how to do that stuff. So
Correct.
that's not really that new. I really think that the biggest thing is the ability for it to tutor.
Mhm.
Again, not for kids our age, but the ability for it to tutor, and some of the controls part, which is one of the reasons why I wanted Matthew on, which we'll have on in a minute, because when you talk about controls, a lot of it is about money. It's
Yes.
about how do you keep somebody from running up a $10,000 token bill, because this stuff's not free. So they're making it available, but you got to pay for it. So
Well,
anyway.
the two things that I think are most important in K-12 education, and I made a comment, I was on a podcast the other day, somebody else's podcast, and I commented that the United States right now is, we are reactive, we are not proactive, so we're really being careful about anyone under the age of 18. The two things that we desperately need in K-12 education are the language barrier issues that I am 100% confident that AI can help with, and that personalized tutoring when you pull in all that data and you pinpoint exactly where a student is missing a concept. And if a teacher has 120 kids that she sees every day, it is very difficult for her to pinpoint those very specific concepts that is a student is missing. So anyway,
All right,
what's the next thing?
The next one's mine. I know you don't follow this one as much as I do. The next one is Anthropic, which is a competitor of OpenAI. They have a tool which I've used for a long time called Claude.
I have used Claude.
3, when it got better, got significantly better. So I've actually started using Claude again some. But they've been a lot about the safety and things. I'm hoping to see Claude. I was kind of hoping to see them, Anthropic, come out with something that we could use better in schools, because they've really been the focus. Their company was founded from people that came from OpenAI that wanted to be more safety focused. So
Right.
I think they've got it built into their DNA. But the interesting thing about tools is most AI usage, the direction that people are going, that are developing things, has to do with agents and tools. Tools have been around for a while. Basically, a tool could be something as simple as a calculator, or it could be something more complex. But the idea being that the large language model can use that tool to perform a task that maybe the tool would do better than the large language model. For example, calculators is a good example, because early on they didn't do math very well, but calculators did. So they could use the calculator as a tool, get the answer to the question, use that as part of the context to get the answer to the teacher. To the student or teacher. So what they've done now is they've added these tools, they've expanded the functionality, so now they can do better with data extraction. They've improved their developer experience. The big thing for developer experience that improved it, the big improvement that's not obvious to people typically, is streaming. When you first came out with these language models, you ask it a question and boom, it gave you the answer. Over time, they started kind of feeding you the answer. That's streaming, to where it was more of a real time iterative conversation because you don't really want the answer to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Google was really bad about that. They're just blasted the answer in.
Mm-hmm.
You want it to be more, as you're asking it, as you're talking to it, it's starting to feed you the answer instead of waiting till it's got all the answer. So it's
Okay.
basically a partial answer. So, and then they talk about real world use cases in their press release about how people are using it. Again, what do they list? Tutoring.
Yes.
They list data extraction and suggestions. That's normal stuff. But I thought the tutoring one would catch your attention.
Yeah.
I really think they're a good candidate. Maybe they're going to be that dark horse that comes in from the back, that nobody's noticed. That's gonna jump in the front with the whole idea of personalized tutoring. I hope so because I think that somebody needs to jump in.
So the next one that we're going to talk about was in
Yes.
TechCrunch, and it's what Perplexity is doing.
I don't really understand this one that well.
I don't either, except
A
that
lot of people are talking about it.
it's basically creating a website for you
Based on what you're looking for.
based on what you're searching for. So if I am a researcher at a university and I do tons of research about something very specific that I'm like getting my doctorate in or something like that, I can take all of those links that I have been going to over and over and over again for my research, and then Perplexity will create a website for me that takes and synthesizes and summarizes all of the different places I've been going to make it to where I can go find my research easier.
I think they actually will do maybe some pictures and stuff.
Absolutely.
But maybe you and I could use it whenever we're building a presentation.
Or a website for somebody.
Yeah, I was thinking the presentation might be interesting because we could bring in, like we could build that shareable page
Mm-hmm.
with all the information we want to talk about
Mm-hmm.
and then bring it in because I know you love Canva and you're never giving it up.
They just did some great releases with some new AI components for Canva.
I asked you about it this morning. We could have put it in the podcast.
Okay, if anybody else out there uses Canva, it is definitely worth going and watching their reveal that they did.
Yeah, it was like a Canva summit or what do you call it?
There was a live audience, and then
Yes.
I joined live online kind of thing. And it was really cool, the stuff that they're doing. The main thing they're doing is a lot of templates. A lot of new AI generated templates are out there.
They're building in AI tools in interesting ways as well. So, okay, how are we doing in time?
We're doing good. We're about halfway through.
All right. Well, then let's not make Matthew wait anymore.
Okay, so we're going to bring in Matthew. So Matthew, I would like for you to pop in, and first of all, I would love it if you would introduce yourself, and then go ahead and just tell us, what do you do for your day job? What is it that you do?
I'm Matthew Burke. I've started my own company where I do kind of like fractional CFO work, which is a fancy way of saying I'm an outsourced financial department for companies that don't need a full-time CFO.
Okay, so basically you have numerous companies that you are like their acting CFO.
Like us.
Like us.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we roped you into this over a year ago, and you decided that you wanted to be a part of this because we just kind of, were and still are really excited about artificial intelligence. So can you give me something that AI has been useful to you for? How do you use it, and possibly give us an example of what you use AI for as a fractional CFO?
Yeah, for sure. So most of what I do is just financial problem solving. If somebody has a problem, they need to make more money or change their prices, or even if they just need to track their performance or something, I put something together to show what's going on and then come up with solutions on how to fix it or how to make it better or whatever we need to do.
So a lot of data analysis.
Exactly. And so probably one of my biggest things is using Excel, like every other financial analyst. And when using Excel, you run into a lot of roadblocks, a lot of things that you wish you could do, but you're not really quite sure how to do it. And it's really hard to look up Excel formulas, especially when they start getting more advanced. And I would say that that's probably what I use ChatGPT specifically for the most, is just helping me write out equations to the complex problems that I have day to day.
Okay.
You mentioned something in our conversation about workflows, and I was really interested in you used a tool I think called Make, and you created your
Yeah,
very first workflow
make.com.
that you had done.
Yeah, so I started out playing with it. Um, it was actually a gift idea for you, Jim, just to kind of test it out and see what we were going to do. There was, anyway, around Christmas time, we were basically going to make a custom AI made calendar. And I was playing with make.com and I figured out that it's kind of like an automation tool that like connects all these different programs, and it has all these APIs that are in it. It's the most advanced tool I've seen to be able to do that. Anyway, we made a I think it's 100% automated daily calendar that I don't think we have it running right now, but it could be sending you a calendar every single day based off of your interests and everything. However, more practically, recently I've been using it to automate like invoices whenever we get emails or have certain placements that pop up for one of my other clients. Uh, I have it basically where it's auto generating invoices and saving them for me so that I can review them before I send them out to the customers that we're working with.
Where is it getting the information to auto generate the invoice from?
So it's pulling it from a couple of different places. It has all of these like inputs and it's all customizable and everything. Basically, it's looking at this sheet that I use, this Excel worksheet, which I manually populate the Excel worksheet, but it has dates. Like once we know that a placement for the specific client is going to happen, I will manually go in and enter all of the information in it. But it might be 2 or 3 months or maybe even next week before that invoice actually needs to go out. So the process of actually sending or actually creating those invoices is all automated, but it does have to pull it from that Excel.
Well, you always have to. I mean, again, this is something that I think people are always saying, "Oh, AI is going to take over. AI is going to take over," and it's not, because somebody has to be the person that's giving it the information for it to then produce a product from. So basically, you're giving it the base information, but then it's taking some steps out of what you're having to do on a daily basis.
For sure. And anytime you can save yourself any amount of money or any amount of time, you're saving yourself money with that as well. So if I save myself an extra 10 hours every week by auto generating these invoices that now I just have to go in and check them, that's, 10 hours that I can spend working on AI Ed Pro stuff or, getting new clients in.
Right.
I think one of the things that interested me the most was you're not a programmer. You don't want to be a programmer. I mean, you like fiddling with that kind of stuff, so you're technically minded. But to be able to generate a useful workflow that happens to also include AI as part of the workflow, because there's lots of workflows that you do that have nothing to do with AI. But at some point, when you need to interact with a user or you need some kind of data transformation that AI is good at, then you can pull it into that workflow. Make to reminds me of Zapier, which when they first introduced GPTs at OpenAI, they mentioned a company, the Zapier workflows. Makes reminds me of that. And then Matthew had mentioned that a guy he knows that has another company has a ton of those. I think Make is his favorite tool. Is that correct?
Yeah, he used to work with Zapier a lot, but he's kind of switched over to Make. I'm not 100% sure why, but most of my experience has been with Make.
I think Make is a little less expensive. If you start getting a lot of workflows, they only give you so many for free, and then you have to start paying or something. So I think he might have switched just because of cost. 'Cause it sounds like he does a lot. So
So
anyway,
basically, one of the questions that I had written down to ask you was that if you think that AI is useful for people who don't know how to do coding, you're basically giving us a really good example of how you have used AI to do workflows, but you really don't have a lot of experience with computer science and coding and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of going back to something that you mentioned earlier in the podcast, you were talking about how uh, they're creating the educational ChatGPT for college students and whatnot. Probably one of the reasons that I lean a little more computer savvy is just because in elementary schools in the early 2000s, we had computer classes, and that gave us a step ahead. That's why, the younger people at the companies are given tech related tasks and asked to do things. If you introduce AI earlier, which people are using throughout the workplace anyway, then our next generation is just going to be better with that. And I think it's going to be a really important tool for people to be able to use to like augment their work in the future.
Thank you, Matthew. That was not scripted. I promise our audience that was not scripted. I 100%, you are speaking my language. Digital literacy, AI literacy. We 100% have to educate K-12 educational space about artificial intelligence and digital literacy, and not just how they can use it, but the pitfalls and the safety and the security and deep fakes.
Okay,
and
you're about to really get off of your soapbox.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that.
I want him to do the next question that I wanted in there was because I mentioned it. We're going to start a theme. We're going to start looking at practical, personal use for AI. The next one is specifically about that.
Okay. Non-work related stuff. Things that you do that are not work related.
That have to do with AI.
Is there anything you use it for?
Probably the two most uses that I use ChatGPT for specifically, because I use ChatGPT more than anything else. Probably.
Do you have the paid version or the free version?
I have the free version, but I do occasionally steal the paid version from my wife.
Okay. All right.
So anyway, there are like two main categories of things that I use it for, not work related. On one hand, I use it for just like interesting facts, jokes. Anytime I'm bored and I'm on ChatGPT, it started because it gives you those prompts at the bottom, and there was one that was like, give me a fact about the Roman Empire or something like that. And I just nerd out over history and random facts and stuff. But on the flip side, I've recently been using it a lot for like D&D campaigns and stuff that I do in my free time. It's really good at like getting into characters, coming up with plots. It seems to have all of the like source books and everything, which like wizards don't sue it or anything. But it's super useful for that, and also the image part of it, the image generation. I recently used that actually this weekend to create some images to help me out in a campaign, and it was pretty good. It has a weird issue with numbers. Like if you try and tell it to have like 4 or 5 of an object, it'll create 3, then create 6 or 8 as you try to correct it. But besides that, it's absolutely great for all of that.
Well, I know that there was a character that somebody was showing me that had like 6 arms or something like that, and they only wanted 4 arms. And one of the things that you need to understand that you can do is you can use the specific editing tool in ChatGPT, and like just highlight the 2 arms that you want it to take away. I don't. I'll have to show you that next time I am in Austin, or next time we have a meeting. I'll show you that specific editing tool so that you can take that image generation up a notch.
Okay, how are we doing for time?
We are doing great for time. We are at 25 minutes.
All right. So the last piece that I wanted to cover for Matthew was the last question. Do you think that based on what you've done with it, do you think it's realistically a useful tool for non-coders to use? It sounds like you've kind of answered that already because you use it for D&D, you use it for Make, and that was why I put that question in there, was because I wanted to emphasize, because we have a lot of trouble with people. They tend to think that it's complex. We always tell people, just ask it a question, just get started. So you kind of answered the question already.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have to be a coder to use Google?
No.
People when Google first came out, believe it or not, because I'm old enough to remember it, people actually there was all kinds of training on how to properly talk to Google, and so they made it sound more complex than it was. And I think it put some people off because there was ways you could put logical and functions, and you could do you could use logical operators, and you can still do that. But most people don't care. They
Yeah.
just start asking it questions. That's the problem we're having, which is one of the reasons I wanted Matthew to talk about his experience with it, because he's not a coder, but he still gets useful stuff out of it all the time. Some of it personal, some of it not.
I agree.
I
I agree.
think
Well,
I think that like any new program or anything like that is gonna have issues. I think a lot of people get turned off by the fact of like all the news stories and everything where they hear about lawyers that like use ChatGPT and it hallucinates and makes up something, or stories like that. Like people get
Yeah,
afraid of it. They're like, why am I going to use it if it is just making things up or blah 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 blah
yeah.
blah. But I mean that's how any new object is going to work. I'm sure when somebody first programmed a calculator, there was a bug or two in it.
yeah.
There was actually, I used some of the early calculators, and
you're
there was.
really aging
I'm
yourself there,
really
Jim.
dating myself now.
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Well,
well, thank you.
Matthew, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to talk with us about artificial intelligence and what it's doing for a fractional CFO. And we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. So, Jim, we have just a couple of minutes left. Is there anything else that we want to say before we sign off?
You want to reemphasize what we're doing? What, in a week, 7 days from now?
We are headed to the TCEA conference in Galveston.
Yes.
I was actually looking over the two different presentations that we are doing, and I'm very excited because one of them, they're actually giving us 80 minutes.
Wow.
Instead of just the hour or 50 minutes that we normally get. So it's the one that we're going to be diving just a little deeper into actual use cases that you can have in elementary school. So I'm looking forward to hopefully showing K through 5 teachers what they can do in the classroom to help them using artificial intelligence.
I'm looking forward to seeing the vendors that have booths set up. I want to see what kind, not just AI stuff, but I go for the school and for, I like talking at those things, but
Oh, absolutely.
I suspect we're going to see AI in a lot of those booths. So.
Well, I will tell you the other thing that I'm really looking forward to. It's in
Eating-
Galveston.
And eating dinner in Galveston.
I get to have some really good seafood.
There you go.
I'm hoping.
There you go.
So, anyway, we are out of time for this evening. So, I would like to say thank you very much for listening. My name is Maurie, and my husband Jim is sitting here with me every single Sunday evening, and we are talking about artificial intelligence. So, we hope that you guys have a wonderful rest of the week.